December 24th, 2018. I remember the whole day before, I was just anticipating the day to come. Couldn't wait to celebrate Christmas. And around 9 in the morning, I ran down the stairs, wished my mom a Merry Christmas, and then I sat to go through the presents underneath the tree. After about like 20 minutes of going throughout my gifts, I just had one present left. I ripped it open to find out it was a pack of underwear. I remember feeling so disappointed, and I just kept thinking to myself, this can't be it. This can't be everything. And I was right in assuming that, because my mom goes, "What's that behind the TV?" I looked behind the TV to find there was one present left. I looked at my mom, she goes, shredded that open, find out it was a Canon Rebel T6, and I was ecstatic. The first thing I did, I went around the neighborhood and just started getting photos of absolutely everything I could capture, which in turn started the first year of Lippincott photography. For months, I'd been watching different YouTubers like Peter McKinnon, Jared Polin, North Borders, and I couldn't wait to go get some of my own photos. My first year, I wasn't particularly the best. I didn't know much about editing. I didn't know much about composition, different times of day, how that affects your photo. For example, sunrise and sunset is more appealing for landscapes, because if you shoot midday, you're gonna get a lot of harsh shadows, kind of like blown out lighting. So I'm gonna go through a couple photos from my first year. Kind of the whole point of me recording this video is mostly so I can kind of show and demonstrate to people that the more you continuously do something, the more you keep practicing it, the more that you keep putting your time and effort into it, the better it's going to become. It's just a matter of repetition after repetition after repetition, and that's really what makes it stick. One of the first photos I'm going to share is a sunset that I captured. Kind of looking back, you can tell the composition's just a little bit off. I went a little bit too much on the editing, and one thing I used to do, I used to put a lot of clarity and a lot of texture into the photos, because I was thinking if it was sharper, it's gonna look better, and that's just really not the case at all. Process your images too much, they're just gonna come out looking fake. And this next photo I still like to this day. It was February 2019, and there was a supermoon in the sky, and this thing was massive. What I like about the photo is that it's not just the moon. There's also some tree branches in front of it, and that kind of keeps it from looking so flat. It has more depth to it, as well as the composition. I tried to line it up for the rule of thirds. Another big thing I used to do, I used to go on different websites like Pinterest and try to like outsource creativity. So I'd be looking up stuff like edgy, cool portraits and just kind of like trying to mimic that. I was going out, I was doing shit like breaking mirrors, getting like 10 years of bad luck from doing it. But I mean, all in all, it kind of came out looking still pretty cool. And the last photo I'm going to share from the first year was kind of like really special to me. It was about a week before I graduated high school, and while everybody else was going down to the beach, we decided to go camping instead. I think it was the 3rd or 4th day on the camping trip, and you could just see it off in the distance. There were streaks of orange and red just going all across the sky. I sprinted down to the lake, and I remember getting the photo and just feeling this kind of sense of accomplishment. It was, without a doubt, like the most favorite photo that I captured since I had started photography. Unfortunately, after the fact, I didn't really have like a chance to go out and get new pictures. I didn't have any new places to go to, so I kind of had to go on a hiatus for a little bit, which brings us into Year 2 was kind of interesting because we had this cool little virus going around. You guys may have heard of it. I think it was called like COVID-19, and it kind of stopped me from going to a lot of places I wanted to go to. Back in the day, I used to work as a bagel shop. Your boy was making bacon, egg, and cheeses every single morning. You can tell it was still COVID back then, because if you look hard at the door, you can see you have to wear a mask to get inside. But this was taken during a snowstorm. I kind of like how there's a lot of neon signs kind of contrasting with the snow coming down. And the next 2 photos I'm going to show you guys was kind of just me trying to be more creative, and at the same time going against like what makes photography traditional. So I was doing like a lot of Photoshop back then. But we have this photo, was again during a snowstorm. There's a lot of fog in it, and I think the fog looks cool, but clearly if you know anything about Photoshop, that's like one of the first skies that you can pick when you click on sky replacement. Same with this next one I'm about to show you. A little bit overdone with the editing. If you look at the windows, you can see I painted them in. Clearly the sky is fake. The shadows are lifted up just a little bit too much, but all in all, it still kind of looks cool, just a little bit over processed. And then this last one is kind of what I was talking about initially, how I didn't understand different types of lighting. So if you want to take like a long exposure of a waterfall, to keep the shutter open for at least 1 to 5 seconds. And the issue with that is that if it's bright outside, it's going to make the image even brighter, and it's going to be hard to bring it back in post, because you're going to have like a lot of blown out colors. For instance, like this photo, you can just see like a lot of detail was lost just because it was too bright. You can't really bring it back. And then unfortunately, it was kind of the same deal. I couldn't really go out and get more photos, so that's going to bring us into So here's kind of like another example of me trying to do long exposure again. Sitting up perched on a highway, and I remember how cold it was up there. It was like almost the middle of winter, like the wind hitting my face and trying to let the shutter open for 30 seconds. Like I remember crying taking this, but all in all, you know, it came out pretty cool. You could also tell by then, like I kind of started to understand lighting more, and I got this photo during the fall of a waterfall with a long exposure, and you know, the colors are a little bit more balanced, maybe a little bit too saturated. And here's another example of like using Photoshop again to replace the sky. If you have a photo that just looks more natural, they don't always have to be so dramatic. You don't always have to replace the sky like I did in this image. But it's still pretty cool because it tries to use the rule of thirds and then also having a silhouette of the subject at the same time. And the same goes for this last photo. You can see, maybe not directly right where the grid would be for the rule of thirds. On the shore there, you get the sunlight coming down, so it kind of creates another silhouette for him. And that's 100% a natural sky too. And that now brings us around this point, like I had a lot more experience doing landscapes. I was getting hired for a couple different clients, doing different weddings, different couples, engagement shoots, but always kind of the biggest thing that's inspired me is just landscapes. They look beautiful and you can always, you know, get like frame photos made of them. They just look sick, man. They look awesome. I loved this photo at the time. I can say now, like there was a lot of like changing colors, trying to make it like look too dramatically fall as opposed to like true to life colors. But I mean, it's still kind of cool. It's got some bleeding lines in here. Same with the next one too. This was up in New York City. One of theirs shot a music video. But it's pretty dope because you got the kind of got like the desaturated colors. It gives you like an urban vibe. But you also have leading lines going directly down to Manhattan. And up next is another example of long exposure photography. This time it's at night, and I really just like the pop of colors. I remember a big semi truck just drove past right before I took this. And that's how like the long exposure from the car was so high up. This last photo I'm gonna show, it was a really special day because I've done this hike many times before. And we kind of always talked about doing it in the morning, but it's maybe about like a 45-minute hike to get to that peak. So we left the dorm at like 5:30 to get down there, just trudging through the dark. It was actually kind of terrifying, but definitely rewarding when we pulled up. Sometimes as photographers, like the best photos we can get is stuff that we kind of actually had to work for. Not just something we walked up and captured, but something that was like a lot of effort put into taking the photo, and even the story you get from taking the photo, it's all kind of special. And then afterwards, I ended up finishing up college, and that brings me into and then guys, that's gonna take us into year 5. The only issue, once I was done filming year 4, I went out to Dairy Queen and I got a blizzard, and when I paid for it, the guy didn't do the flip cup thing, you know? He kind of just handed it to me like this. So deep down, I don't know if I can trust this. I feel like something must be up with this. I don't want to eat that sucker. But alright, we're gonna have 4 photos to wrap it up. The first one is probably my favorite photo of my entire career that I've ever taken. It was about like a 30-minute hike to get up to the spot, and it was incredibly sketchy because you had to cross over like a railroad track just to get to this tunnel. But the end result was probably the coolest photo of my entire career. When I stepped into the tunnel and I could hear the echo, I could hear the bats inside of there. I set up my tripod, connected it to my phone, snapped the picture, and I still think it's one of the coolest things I've ever captured. Going on to the second one, this was taken at the top of a cemetery, probably about like 30 minutes after sunrise. And if you kind of notice a consistent theme at this point, I tried to take my photos either during sunrise or during sunset. So I kind of had like a mood going for this photo. I don't know, I thought it was kind of symbolic with the tombstone. You also have the church off in the distance, and then all of the fog rolling on the back. This photo is also top 5 for me. The next photo I'm going to share was also taken in the morning. One thing I miss about the place that I used to live at is that you had these gigantic mountains, and every morning like you could just see the fog rolling in. And I found this tree with a perfect bench next to it, sat down, snapped the photo, and honestly everything about this, I feel like the colors, the composition, the silhouettes, it kind of just came out looking very cool. And then the last photo I want to share, it was about like 20 minutes to get out to this river. I remember like setting up the tripod, and I wanted to take a seat while I was taking the photos, and I accidentally sat right on a red anthill, and it was horrifying. Like the ants were crawling all up and down my pants. Some of them were going inside of my pants. The entire like left side of my arm was all covered in ant bites. But as far as the progression goes, comparing my photos from year 1 up until year 5 current day, and the entire reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place is kind of just to show people that the more you consistently do something, the better you are going to get at it. When I first started photography, like I did not know close to anything, except I knew I wanted to get better at photography. If you were to look at the photos from a year ago and compare them to now, you couldn't even tell it was taken by the same person. And hopefully in this video you could see some of the errors that I made and some of the mistakes that I made, so you guys can learn from it to strengthen your own creativity and your own approach to this craft. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned something new or you just thought it was interesting, feel free to leave a like, maybe even leave a comment, maybe even leave a subscribe. All of that would be pretty cool. I'm about to go call Dairy Queen customer support and tell them they didn't flip my Blizzard when I paid for it. Thank you guys so much, and take care.